we always have gone back to like what our value system is. And if we had a shop and we were selecting a roaster, what would we want from that roaster is always what we go back to. And the service aspect along with product are very equal.
They're going to be talking about your tasting. They're going to be spreading the word for you. They're going to be marketing your brand for you, especially if they have a unique experience that they've never had before. And then that's going to actually build that trust in your brand.
Welcome back to the 5THWAVE podcast. I'm Jeffrey Young, editor-in-chief of 5THWAVE. For many ambitious baristas, going solo, setting up a roastery and roasting their own delicious coffee can be the ultimate dream. But how do you go from dream to reality? What are the key steps and decisions you need to make before embarking upon this daunting yet exciting journey? And once the roastery is set up, how do you ensure it's a business success? We'll be tackling these questions in a brand new series as we explore all aspects of the business of coffee roasting. From sourcing equipment and green coffee to building a brand and establishing wholesale partnerships. In this first episode, we focus on the basics of setting up a roastery. That is, finding the right location, knowing when to upgrade facilities as you grow, and defining your vision and goals for the roastery. We'll later speak with Lem Butler, co-founder of Black and White Coffee Roasters in North Carolina. But first, we chat with Kirby Sinclair, co-founder of The Roasting Party in the UK. Founded in 2013, The Roasting Party is an Aussie-inspired specialty coffee business with 3 coffee shops in London, a roastery with a training centre, and a coffee equipment program. Could you just walk us back through when you set up Roasting Party and what was the first machine that you bought and where are you now?
I think not many people know we have a bit of a sister roastery in Australia with the Little Marionette. And so I think like early doors, we probably had a little bit of a step up, kind of and made mistakes there and then had someone to bounce off when I first started here, you know, with Ed Cutcliffe. So it made it a little bit easier about like choices of equipment, you know, how big and etc. But we started small because we started with not very much cash, right? So I think you need to get a good amount and then probably spend all of that amount on getting the best equipment possible, you know, whether that's secondhand or first. But I also don't believe in like taking huge investment and just getting everything brand new and almost given to you. Like part of the great thing, I think, for the Roasting Party is that the fight along the way has kind of helped us to, you know, understand who we are and who we want to be. Yeah. But we started with a very small warehouse, 100 square meters, and got a 12 kilo Probat. And we purposely have gone for old refurbished equipment throughout our whole 10 years, actually, because we believe in like cast iron roasting and the retention heat, etc., that goes into that. And so we were able to start with a 1 kilo Probatone sample roaster. And then, an L12 roaster.
How long was it from having that 100 square meter site with a 12K roaster until you had to upgrade?
A year too long, probably. But, you know, so we moved year 4 to then 3,500 square feet, so 350. So we tripled the capacity, yeah.
And how big, did you go to a bigger roaster by that time, of course?
Yeah, so then we went to a UG22. Yeah, so we doubled the size of the roaster as well. I think that was mostly like a capital issue.
Yeah.
I think in hindsight, probably would have gone slightly bigger.
Yep.
Because it didn't decrease the amount of time we were roasting. We were still roasting every day.
Mm-hmm. And is that where you are today with a 22K roaster?
No, we're now with it's a 60 kilo roaster, but it's got a 120 drum in it. So we can do a 1 bag roaster. So if I was to scale up again, I'd go to then a 2 bag, knowing the time efficiencies that bring that.
Yeah.
But I also think a 1 bag roaster is about the max.
That second roaster of 22 kilograms, how much output were you able to get out of that? before you decided you had to take the plunge to go bigger to 60 kg?
We probably only got to like 70% capacity with that. We got to about 1.8 ton a week. But again, it was a similar situation. It was like 4 or 5 days a week roasting.
Yeah.
For that. And we just needed our staff to be deployed in other areas. So we went to a much bigger roaster, and now we're between 2.5 and 3 ton a week roasted. But we do that in 2.5 days now.
So when do you really know that you have to go bigger? What's that moment?
When we've all lost our hair and look, I mean, it was like, are we servicing our customers? I mean, I think that we always have gone back to like what our value system is and what would we want to be. If we had a shop and we were selecting a roaster, what would we want from that roaster is always what we go back to. And the service aspect along with product are very equal. One shouldn't be more important than the other. And we really felt that like we wanted to actually push on the service, the accountability from that side, how much we are we at our customers, And today we've been able to keep that concept since day one. We're there weekly.
And so if you were sort of advising a young barista that wanted to take the plunge, what are the kind of critical steps that you would sort of advise those people to get started?
I think definitely find your own identity. Yeah. I know it starts with a name, but really think about the name that you have for your company. And then also what identity, what are you going to do? Are you going to do super really light roasted coffee for filter? Or are you an espresso based person? What are your views? And really get like a strong in-depth feel and learn to like really love your product first, and believe that it's the best. Like what do you want to do? What is that like that driver? How do you want your coffee to be? Yeah. And because that passion then will exuberate to your like, wholesale customers and then, or your own shops.
And then green coffee, really important part. So how to, this young barista that's just given up his job in the cafe, setting up a roastery, how's he or she, or they going to get that coffee for that roastery?
Yeah, fortunately, like actually the trading market are full of people who are passionate about coffee as well. So, the conversations you're going to have with them are really great. And go around all of them, build your relationships. That is the really, really, really important, strong, solid coffee supply relationships. But meet them all.
Yeah.
Go to loads of cuppings. Find out what they're best at. And then how that's going to fit into your like program. And it's not always about buying the most expensive or the most tastiest coffee as well. Mm-hmm. It's what you feel you can do with it. Just like what you can do with like an underripe tomato when you're cooking with it. What do you need to add to it? Yeah. What's your style?
Yeah.
Is that style for you? And then you'll gravitate to a couple. I'm not sure. Putting all your eggs in one basket with one trader is also a good move, but sometimes inevitable because of the way just you need to operate.
Yeah. And I guess it's a difficult decision of how much coffee to buy in the beginning. I guess again, it depends on whether you've got ready-made customers or whether you're actually just going to buy coffee to show your first set of customers. What would you recommend there?
There will be an element of that you have some kind of burn rate of your capital. Yeah. Giving away coffee, getting yourself out there in the market. But I do think you need to have a blend and you need to have some kind of single origin program. That is really important. I don't think you can just sort of survive on a single origin program.
Yeah. And what have you learned along the way? Have you, any mistakes that you may have made that you wish you would have understood right at the beginning of the process?
Maybe that 22 was a mistake. Maybe we should have gone bigger at that stage, but obviously money dictated that. Different bits of equipment. Would I have started our engineering kind of program earlier? Probably. But so we now have like a service department, but mainly from a preventative maintenance side. So because most of what we do is hand deliveries, so we can swap machines in and out, etc., bring them back to base and work on the preventative side of things, which is ultimately, a really good thing for our customers. But we then use reactive engineers out on the road who are out there And so you have a balance of both.
Okay, so I'm hearing from you, providing that coffee machine or working with the coffee machine absolutely critical to a roastery. I realize that there are quite a lot of roasters that have partnerships with espresso machines. So that servicing is really critical to your business as well.
Yeah, a huge part of what we do. Yeah, from changing water filters, even just as that a small thing. Now, every coffee roaster is going to do that because it's a fundamental thing.
Yeah.
But having spare equipment to be able to like take equipment in and out, I think is also really critical. But preventative maintenance is kind of where we have really concentrated on, rather than kind of having reactive engineers just out there potentially hoping for problems. We actually want to go the other way. We want there to be no problems because the preventative maintenance program is really good.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people out there may know this, but there may be some that really just probably think that's the job of the coffee equipment company, really, or the specialist maintenance company, as opposed to the roaster. Why do you think it's so important for the roaster?
I think, well, it's a partnership, isn't it? Your wholesale. You don't just look at them as like dropping coffee off. I mean, we certainly don't. We look at it as, we've invested in the knowledge to be able to help you worry about your shop. And so that's why I see it really important, and we just don't want people to have downtime, and then also downtime on a weekend when they're super busy. That would almost be forgivable, really. Having a machine that's not making money is a real problem. I think this is what like small, 3 to 7, 8, 10 store chains potentially get wrong. I think they feel like when they open a roastery that maybe they'd make that decision to start roasting for themselves because of a cost benefit, et cetera. But it's all the little things outside. It's then the training. It's then the service engineering work. It's your link to your equipment suppliers. It's all of those other things that you're building as a roastery because you have a critical mass, because you have it across a whole bunch of other people, not just like 5 to 10 stores, right?
Yeah.
You have it across hundreds of customers. So I think that's where maybe people don't see all of that other stuff that happens behind the scenes that roasteries provide for shops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But presumably that requires quite a bit of capital expenditure and infrastructure in place to be able to provide that service.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and time taken away from the things that you do good, right? Like there's a reason you probably have 5 to 10 stores, you're doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not concentrating that and then going to something that you're probably not very skilled at, then it just puts you behind in the things that you were good, right?
Final question here. Do you see your roastery getting bigger? Is there a moment where you're going to have to go bigger again? And if you could, what would be the dream scenario?
I don't know, actually. Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest pitfall is obviously cash and cash flow. Like, we are now at a stage where it makes a difference. So I think maybe rounding off a few things, I would like online to get bigger for us.
Okay. Yeah.
I think actually, because we're so close to our wholesale customers, could you keep replicating that bigger? I'm not so sure. There must be a disconnect at some stage.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we're not there now.
Yeah.
But I'm always very wary of that. That's always the question we go, how much bigger without losing that connection can we get? Our customers need to be family.
Yeah.
And it's really important. I want to keep that aspect as long, same with the staff.
Yeah.
I would hate to get to a stage where that is lost.
Yeah.
So however big that can get, Jeff, is probably where I want to get to.
Thanks so much for joining us here today on Fifth Wave.
Thanks, Jeff. See you later.
It was incredible to hear how much focus Kirby puts on the engineering program and coffee machine partnerships. He defines the roasting party not just as a coffee supplier, but as a holistic partner for all their clients, investing in and sharing knowledge to help their clients optimize performance. Now let's speak with legendary Lem Butler, co-founder of Black and White Coffee Roasters in North Carolina, USA. Lem set up Black and White Roasters in 2017 with his business partner Kyle Ramage after the two struck up a kinship while training for the US and World Barista Championships. In addition to the now 13,000 square foot roastery, which ships specialty coffee across the United States and abroad, Black and White also runs 3 community cafe spaces and a tasting room. Welcome, Lem.
Thanks a lot for having me.
I wonder if you could walk us through the process as if you were setting up a roastery from scratch today. What are some of the key decisions you need to make, and what advice would you offer?
There's a lot of factors that will influence decisions. Money is a big one. If money was not an issue, I would go bigger than you would think you would need. So if you say, I just need a 7-kilo roaster, double that. Because your goal is to grow, and you don't want to end up in a spot where you're maxed out on that roaster. I would also look at, your market. What kind of market are you trying to get into? When we started, we had this ambition of really doing well in wholesale. But at the time, there was a large push for the multi-roaster platform. And for us, that wasn't very sustainable because, you have these roasters across the country that would purchase our coffee for, 3 or 4 months, and then they would rotate us off. So it was really hard to predict how much coffee to purchase, how much green coffee to purchase for that.
What are the essential pieces of equipment and other things that you have to get in place before you can start to trade that roastery?
A simple base would be a roaster, a weigh-in fill, and some sort of sealer, and a pretty good relationship with a bag company. Because what we found was as we roasted more coffee, our bottleneck was at the packaging. And, I was weighing out coffee with a scoop and a scale into a bucket, and then pouring that into a bag. And it was just time consuming, and even more time consuming the more coffee we roasted. So our deadline, what we wanted to do and what we do now is to roast to order. So if your order comes in before we get there, 6 or 7 a.m., then it'll be roasted, packaged, and shipped that day. And that means we have a deadline of 5 p.m. to get to the post office to get everything shipped out. And the more orders that come in, the Loring is well capable of roasting everything, but the bottleneck was the packaging. So we had to add a weigh-in fill to make things faster, and a solid sealer. We went through probably 5 different sealers to find the one that works best for us, that's fast. And that solved the problem for a while. And then when we added that 70-kilo roaster, then the bottleneck again was packaging. And so we had to add a separate production line, which is another weigh-in fill, another sealer.
I would have thought the tasting room is pretty important for someone that's mildly ambitious and wants to build community.
I highly recommend not ignoring those consumers that just want a decent cup of coffee. They're not going to be exploring anaerobics or, co-fermentations. They're going to be looking for that solid medium or dark roast Colombian coffee or Central American coffee. And, the majority of the drinks that go out of our door in our cafes are lattes,
Yeah.
or cappuccinos. They're milk-based drinks. So if you have coffees that you're interested in and you want the public to get interested in, the best way to do that is have a free tasting. Start building that rapport with customers and that don't necessarily want to venture out from that dark roast coffee. The best way to do that is to give them something free, give them an experience that's for free. And the best way to do that is to have that tasting room and invite them into your brand. You're bringing them in and you're giving them something free, but you're getting something huge out of it. They're going to be talking about your tasting. they're going to be spreading the word for you. They're going to be marketing your brand for you, especially if they have a unique experience that they've never had before. Yeah. And then that's going to actually build that trust in your brand. So whatever you roast and you put out there, they will be interested in trying it.
And in terms of the actual location of your roastery, let's say it's just a roastery, is there any kind of types of locations that you think are better for a roastery than not?
Purely a roastery, it could be anywhere. Yeah. I think the further away from the city, you're going to get a better deal on a lease per square foot. And starting out, that would be very helpful. But and I wouldn't worry about people not finding you if you have an event. I mean, coffee drinkers, they will find free coffee. So if you're 30, 40 minutes outside of the metropolis, I don't think that'll be an issue with folks finding you when you have an open event for people to come in and see the roastery. 20 years in coffee, I still find people who have been drinking coffee all their life and do not understand that coffee comes from the seed of a fruit.
Yeah.
They literally think it's a bean. They don't understand how roasting works, how coffee farming works. And it's a great opportunity to fill that gap as a roaster.
So being really hard now, kind of like 3 things that you must get right to make a successful roastery.
Your relationships. You have to build relationships and continue to build them. I mean, not just the coffee producers and your importers that you work with, your exporters that you work with, but your staff is very important. They are the lifeblood of your business. We roast 10-hour shifts 4 days a week. So they get the middle of the week off, Wednesday, and they get the weekend off. And we wanted to create this work-life balance for the staff, for both roasting and production. It's very tedious. It's very hard work. And creating that balance for them makes them want to be a part of something.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing you have to get right, relationships.
Yep.
And the other thing I think you have to get right is the coffee quality. QC is super important. Understanding what your profile is and maintaining that. What coffees are you sourcing? If you have multiple blends, what coffees are you sourcing? How are you sourcing to maintain that flavor profile? What does your QC look like? Are you quality controlling samples? Are you quality controlling when a coffee arrives? Are you quality controlling the entire time you have that coffee in your warehouse? And you have to be ethical about how you source coffee, because all the farmers that I've met over my time in coffee, a lot of them have no idea where the coffee goes and what happens to that coffee. They grow it, they produce it, they ship it, and then they start all over again with no knowledge of what's happening out there. And this is beautiful to see, this relationship between this roaster and this producer cultivate over years and produce something that's amazing. So I think there's a responsibility, and that's something that shouldn't be taken advantage of, those relationships in the industry.
And what else? And what else? Final must get right?
I'll always be open to the market. It changes, it evolves, evolve with it. I think a lot of roasters, a lot of businesses in general, cafes, they get stuck in doing one thing their way all the time, and the industry is evolving. I don't think you have to shift your ideals and your values, but I think your mission or your vision should adjust with the industry. Don't be so close-minded in some of the new innovation that comes out in the industry. I feel that you'll get left behind. And then you'll be at a point, in your journey, like, oh, what happened? What have I done wrong? What do I need to do now to catch up? So just be open-minded. You don't have to pivot every time a new thing comes along, but just be open-minded to it and not be as critical as I've seen some businesses, not just even coffee. I've seen other businesses be very critical of new things that come along in their industry. And I don't want to see that for the coffee industry.
Yeah. And anything that you wish you would have learned? Is there anything that you wish you and your team would have maybe understood before now to not made a mistake, or anything you would have done differently?
I think I don't have any regrets. Everything is a learning process. Especially failures, failures are looked at in a negative light, but I think they're an opportunity to learn. But if anything, I would say better communication, clear communication, will help things run really smoothly down the road. I think that's one of the biggest things.
And what, for example, in the context of a roastery, what kind of types of communication would you actually have to nail?
Clear communication with your leadership team, with your staff, making sure everyone is on the same page with the vision. That vision, mission, and values has to be communicated down from owner to barista.
Thanks so much for joining us here today on Fifth Wave.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Always great to talk to you.
Lem echoes Kirby's thoughts on the importance of building genuine business relationships, both with green coffee suppliers and wholesale partners. And all this is underpinned by having a clear mission statement and great communication to make sure everyone in the business understands your values and vision. Join us next time as we deep dive into the equipment side of kitting out a roastery and explore how technology and potentially how AI could be used to improve roasting performance. And that's all for this week's Fifth Wave podcast. Please subscribe to Fifth Wave wherever you get your podcasts. And if you've enjoyed this show, please recommend us to a friend or give us a 5-star rating. And to stay informed, visit worldcoffeeportal.com to access all the latest global coffee news, including the weekly coffee dose, our newsletter sharing the breaking news stories of the week. This episode was produced in the one and only Serendipity Studios in glorious Camden, North London. It was produced by myself, Jeffrey Young, Hannah Heath, and sound engineering by Chris Bristow. And this week's song in collaboration with the Coffee Music Project is Bad As You Are by Alicia Davis. And until next time, stay safe, stay passionate, and stay caffeinated.
This point, I'm as bad as you are. As bad as you are. As bad as you are. I'll make them all see stars, then I'll watch them fall apart. 'Cause I'm as bad as you are. Baby, I was an angel in your eyes, and now I think I'm as bad as you are. Angel, I was your witness, your savior. Thanks to you, I'm as bad as you are. As bad as you are. The devil makes his mark. As bad as you are. Take another piece of my heart. 'Cause I am as bad as you are. I tear in love apart. I'll make them all see stars, so then I'll watch them fall apart. 'Cause I'm as bad as you are.